So I got a few of these Model 2 Genesis boards. It's this cover, or this case, if you're not familiar. I got them in a bulk buy that I had ordered a while back with some Model 1s. And these have just been sitting around. Now, one of these works. I believe it's this one here. However, it has an intermittent problem where it just locks up and throws an error. And each time the error is different, and the intermittent problem happens whenever. I mean, it can go 20 seconds and throw an error, or it'll run for days at a time without a problem. So I'm gonna come back to this one. It does work. I'll show you. Plug it in, and I've had to make my own connector because I don't have an AV connector for this. But turn that off. You make do with what you have. So turn it on. Yeah, this is the one that works. Yeah, so it works. It's kind of blurry, but from what I've read, the RGB encoder on this is the what is it, Hitachi, I think, makes this one. It's the KA model. So that's the one people don't generally like. It's the KA2195D, and this one cannot have the S-Video mod to it done unless you swap out that IC and some of the componentry that goes along with it, some of the supporting components. This one here does nothing, I believe, or no, this one here works, or I should say doesn't work. It turns on and just displays a black screen. I'll show you that. You just get a black screen. And yes, I've tried cleaning the cartridge slot, all that kind of stuff, wiggling it around. But here's the, and I'll show you in a minute. This one has, I don't know if you can even see on camera here, I'll show you under the microscope in a minute. This one's got a lot of corrosion. And then this is the one that I want to make work. And it does nothing. There's no output at all, no matter what you do. So what's interesting though, let me show you under a microscope. I'll show you the previous board. This is the one that's got all the corrosion on it, and this is going to be the donor board. It's VA1, and this one here is the one that just displays a black screen, is a VA0. So I don't even need to plug it in, so let me just show you. So I'll show you what this one looks like under the scope. It's pretty nasty. So there's the cartridge slot. Put some light in here. There's the cartridge slot, and you can see there's a lot of corrosion. It almost looks like that cap has leaked all over the board, but I don't know. It doesn't appear swollen, but it could have leaked. I mean, that doesn't mean anything. And most of the corrosion is around the openings in the case. So if you see there, and then you look down, so there'd be the reset button, and the little dome piece is missing off of it. So there's some corrosion around there. And here's where the power LED, or the power switch would be. That one's not too bad, but you see all these little bubbles everywhere. So I'm wondering if somebody, yeah, like over here where it was covered, is perfectly fine. So I'm wondering if somebody spilled like orange juice in this or something. So this board's pretty well toasted. I'm not going to waste a lot of time fixing this one because, well, you need the parts for other boards and you can use it off this one. So let's look at this board right here, the one that's given us absolutely no output. And we use this. So, no output at all. So I think the first thing I'm going to do is just check the RGB encoder and see if it's getting any kind of power. Let me just hook up a ground real quick. So I already have the data sheets for these chips, and I have the pin out here. Pin 12 is VCC 1, pin 19 is VCC 2. Alright, so it's a 24 pin IC, pin 12 is right here, and we have 5 volts. Alright, so pin 19 is VCC2, so we got 24, 23, 22, 21, 20, and then 19. And we got 5 volts there. Alright, so it is getting power. Is it getting anything? It's not really getting any signal on any of these lines. So we're getting really no signal to the actual IC itself. So let's check the processor and see what the processor looks like. Let me see if I can get this on camera. So here's the IC. Let's see, pin 14 is VCC. These two are essentially ground. This is non-connected. So I'm going to look for a clock and see if it's actually getting a clock signal. I'm going to look and see if it's actually getting power. And then there's a halt right here. And this, if this is grounded, it'll halt. It'll stop all instructions from processing. I think this just floats. I don't know. I'm going to tell you right now, I'm not sure if this actually goes to 5 volts when it's in normal operation, or if it just floats. I would imagine it goes to 5, but what do I know? And let's just check those parts, or those pins. All right, pin 15 is what we're looking for. So if this is pin 10, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and then 15. So I guess turning it back on would actually help, wouldn't it? So the CPU's getting power. Let's see if it's getting a clock. And it's still turned on. I see no clock pulse. So we have the VSS, that, and then this. Looks like it's just floating. Alright, so let's see why there's no clock pulse. This is the crystal, or the oscillator for the entire board. It has a crystal in it, but it's the oscillator for the entire board. And these are pretty cool. You just add power, and out comes that frequency. So let me do this. Let me flip the board over, make sure we got power. And I'm going to take the cartridge out. It should still, as long as it gets power, it should oscillate. So here's the other side, the 4-pin oscillator. You got these two here are not connected. So one of these should be 5 volts. And the idea is you got a 5 volt, a ground enable, and an output. So if this is the 5 volt, then this will be pin 1, and this will be the ground enable. And we won't see anything until I gotta probe that and see if it's actually switched to ground or not. This should be the output. And that output's not looking, it doesn't look like that's only a few hundred millivolts. And it looks like just like noise. And then this should be ground. So let me just let's just check the continuity. I don't know if you need to have a cart installed to actually get for this to be energized or to be enabled, but alright, so we got ground there. We have no ground there. So what happens if I ground that? Just curious. This is probably, I don't know if this is even the right thing to do. Let's ground that out. This side should be the output. Let's move this down here. That should be the output. And I'm grounding that out and getting absolutely nothing. The other thing I'm going to check just real quick is, turn this off. Let me just make sure the reset switch isn't stuck on. I looked at the other board. It looks like these two should be connected. Yeah, and then these two connect when the button is pushed, or these two, doesn't really matter. And let's go to auto. Sorry, my hand's in the way. And it is showing some resistance when it's pressed. I'm sorry I can't show it to you on camera, but you'll have to believe me on that. Let's pull this crystal out, oscillator out, and see what happens. Alright, so I had a bit of a rethink. I put it in my little parts or component vise. We'll add 5 volts. And no matter if I ground this out or not, we still get all this. It's just interference more than anything. So let's try a different crystal and see what happens. Oscillator. I know, I keep saying it. This is the one with all the corrosion, and as you see, same frequency. Yeah, there we go. .15 volts. There we go, much better. There's no trigger on that, so it's dancing all around. So this one looks good. Let's put this one in our board. Bend these tabs over a little bit, or these pins. That wasn't good. There's really not much to work with here. Just need something to hold it in place while I solder it. Put my finger on it. Make sure it's seated against the board there. Alright. Alright, now that that's in, let's see if we got anything. Alright, cross your fingers. Got no power. What do we have no power? Bad connection. Ooh. A little dark. Color is really washed out. They're really, it looks like shit. It doesn't look too good. That could also be the capture card. The capture card in this computer kind of sucks. But actually, let me look on the TV. Yeah. Alright, so that looks like it's just the capture card. I'm looking at it actually on a direct feed to the TV, and it actually doesn't look too bad. I've seen better. It doesn't look too bad. The colors are much, much better than what you're seeing. So that was a pretty easy fix. I think what I'm going to do next is an S-Video output mod. I got to build the board for that, because this does have the Sony chip on it, so we can do that. And I'm also going to print out a little bracket to add component and audio left and right out, so we don't have to use this AV connector. Some purists don't like that because you have to modify the case for it, but whatever, I'm doing it anyway. The other option, or the other thing I want to do, probably before I do that though, although it doesn't matter, I could just pull the wire off, is this audio circuitry is apparently junk. It outputs very distorted audio. I don't know if that's just because of the level, and the level needs to be pulled back, or if it has to do with these op amps that they have running. And it looks like what, an LM324, so people make headphone amps out of these, so I don't know what the problem is. But is what it is. So apparently the new mod basically gets rid of this whole thing here, this whole area, and you build a new amp and new preamp, and it runs right off the ASIC, and then you can output that, to whatever output device you're using, whether it's this connector or if you put your own audio left and right in. And then I'll do the S-Video after I do all that, or one or the other. I don't know. I'd like to also recap this entire board. I don't even think it needs it, but it wouldn't hurt. This was made in the generation of bad caps. Let me see, what is the brand of these? These are Rubicons, so it may not need it, but we'll take a look at that. So I'll be putting more videos up of this board, possibly the other board if I can figure out, or actually make the intermittent problem a little less intermittent and find out why exactly it's reading errors. It's probably, I'd say, one of three things. Bad RAM. If anybody has had a computer with a bad stick of RAM, you know what that'll be. It'll work perfectly fine, and then it'll just crash randomly. Or it needs to be reseated, but this obviously wouldn't need to be reseated. Bad solder joint someplace on the board, and that would be not this board, but the other one I was showing you. What did I say already? The bad cartridge slot, bad RAM, bad solder joint. So, anyway, if you have any questions or comments, leave them down below, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.